Okay. Well, I think we're going to get going. Let me just make sure I have my agenda handy and I let people in as we go along. My agenda is right there. Okay. Zoom is right there. Admit Nupur Mascara. And let's get started. My name is Paul Nelson, and I'm the founder of SPLAB, which currently stands for Seattle Poetics Lab, SPLAB.org. We were founded in 1993, originally to produce and syndicate public affairs radio programs, many of which you can hear at paulenelson.com/American Prophets. paulenelson.com, just go to the interviews button on that. There's hours and hours and hours of audio, and we finally give in, and we're going to create a podcast this year in September. We're also rebranding the organization, so we're going to be changing our name. Um, this year's festival, the Poetry Postcard Fest, is a tribute to Diane DePrima and Michael McClure. And these two poets are very instrumental in shaping the Postcard Fest. And I'll get into that in a second. I should talk about the history of the fest itself. Started in 2007 when SPLAB was located in Auburn, Washington. And we had a critique group that met once a week. And Lana Hechtman Ayers was one of the people. She went on later to form Moonpath Press on the Oregon coast. And I told her I wanted to do something where you wrote every day in August, and it involved postcards. And she said, I'll help. It's a fantastic thing to say to someone who starts these projects. I'll help. What a beautiful thing. And I think in large, Lana deserves a lot of the credit for helping the fest get to the kind of event that it is today. And I'm really grateful for her. So I mentioned that she was a co-founder of the fest every chance I get. And she participates regularly, not every year, but regularly, which is a good thing. She has a sense of that, and she's a big cheerleader for the fest. So it started in 2007, and it grew to 544 people around the world last year. I think it was 11 countries, 46 or 47 states, and 3 Canadian provinces. I had on my list last year, I was on 3 lists last year because it started early, it started in March. People from United Arab Emirates, from all over the United States and the UK and wherever. So that's how the fest got started in 2007. This year's fest, as I mentioned, is a tribute to Diane DePrima and Michael McClure. And what I'd like to do is share screen and go to the page that talks about that. And of course, we have it right there. So this is, this is our Poetry Postcard Fest online gallery. And then you can see tribute on there. And when you click on tribute, you see the tribute is to Diane DePrima and Michael McClure. Many photos of Michael and Diane provided by Amy Evans McClure, Michael's widow. And I interviewed Michael in October of 1995, and he talked about projective verse. He said, if you like my poetry, it's because of the method I use, projective verse. Get this essay by Charles Olson, written in 1950. Read it out loud, because he wrote it in a style that was similar to Ezra Pound. But if you read it out loud, it would be easier to make sense of it, and you'll better understand what I'm doing. And October 1995 is when I started studying projective verse, and I'm still at it. Diane DePrima, who also comes from the school, sort of the Beat Black Mountain School of Writing, I interviewed, I think in 1999, and she participated in the first year of the Postcard Fest. In fact, I have her card. I unearthed it, and it's nice to be able to have a decent enough filing system where you can remember where this stuff is. And of course, now that I'm in the middle of it, I dig for it and I can't find it. But I have a postcard from Diane DePrima. Okay, here we go. This is what she sent me. I guess I got to stop sharing the screen to be able to show you this, but this is the card Diane sent me in the first year. And just a normal postcard, Women's Friendship and Association students at Woodrow Wilson High School waiting their turn for a dental examination, Washington, D.C., 1943. I guess this is appropriate to show on Juneteenth. And her poem is right here. You could talk to America. You could see that it's written spontaneously there, and it says you can't talk to America, but better to keep talking than to choke on your own disgust. Do you remember what it was we dreamed? That was the postcard I got from Diane back in 2000, 2008. 2008. So pretty cool that she was involved in the fest. And so the fest this year is an homage to Diane DePrima and Michael McClure, both of whom died last year. Neither of one of COVID. They were both in their 80s, both Diane and Michael. And I wish I'd have known Diane better. The more I read about her, the more of her work I read, the more I think I wish I would have known her better. To that end, I've done an interview and just published it on my blog today with David Stephen Colon, who wrote a book about Diane DePrima's visionary poetics and hidden religions. And you can hear that. I'll put the link in the chat. And a fascinating book about the research that Diane did over the years and how Hermetic spiritual traditions and divination and other kinds of things informed her work. I think it's just fantastic. And his scholarship, I mean, when you read a chapter and you see he's getting into the 60s, I think, with footnotes, you know the guy's done his homework. So highly recommended that book. The process of the Postcard Fest is pretty easy. Like I said, you get your list of 32 people. You sign up before the deadline. The deadline this year is July 18th, as it has been in past years. But we're going to be moving up the deadline next year. So for the 16th year of the fest, it'll be the 4th of July. So there won't be the overlap. We're trying to get away from the notion that it's the August Poetry Postcard Fest. We don't call it that anymore. It starts on the 4th of July, which I think is a beautiful thing, because not because we're patriotic Americans so much as we think the concept of freedom, personal freedom, liberation in a Buddhist sense is really important. We support a kind of writing that liberates the human, and in a very Buddhist sense, I would say, although I don't come from a Buddhist tradition. Here's the list I had from last year. You can see I didn't laminate it, but I taped it and had it, and then of course I make little notes on it when I send people the card, what number it was, and then what date I was doing it. And so I have my list when I get it, and I get it like that. I mark it up and I save them. So that's a good thing to do. You get your list. By the way, if you do participate in the fest and you get your list, in the first few days, be careful, because a lot of people will email me and say, oh, I got my zip code wrong. I'm sorry. Or, oh, you forgot to put my apartment on there. I'm sorry about that. So the first list you get may be provisional, and I'll put that in the introductory email. Be careful. This might change. But then when you do get your list, to create it like this and to have it, and then to start, of course, I'm usually number one on the list, but here I wasn't. Here I was kind of in the middle. I think what I did was I had it in an Excel format. I just did it like that. But anyway, you see me here, and then I started with a person underneath me. And once I finished Jody on the bottom, I went to the top, right? So you start with a person below your name, and you start writing cards. And you don't have to write one a day. You could write 3 in a row or 4 in a row. If you're in a groove, just keep writing. But you try to do the fest as it's designed, spontaneous composition, because only one person's going to get it. They can't share it. And this is an exercise in, getting to quell the editor's mind and not to worry so much about writing the perfect poem. Try not to think about it too much. I think that's the key to spontaneous composition, to not think about it so much, which is a very Buddhist thing. And if you're interested in spontaneous composition and how that works for you, or if you enjoyed the fest and want to learn more about the theory behind spontaneous composition, last year we started doing Zoom workshops about this, and it's been a lot of fun, and we continued them, and a workshop is continuing. It just had week 2, and week 3 is tomorrow night. We've been meeting on Sunday nights, and the latest workshop is called Life as Rehearsal for the Poem, and it's been a delight to work with people in this mode. So That's a little bit about the process of the fest. I've got a note that says talk about resources, and I'm going to go to share screen again and bring up the Postcard Fest website, popo.cards. That's going to change for next year as well. As we rebrand, we're going to be getting a new website, and the Postcard Fest won't have its own separate site. So this is what it looked like, and these are the resources here. So you can see the online Poetry Postcard Fest exhibit. Thanks to James Gaynor and Kristen Ryberg for putting that together. That's really a beautiful thing. What else do we have? We have buy USPS postcard stamps there, postcard poems as peace process, the Tao of postcards, postcards and other spontaneous methods. The postcard is writing or rewriting. I really still like this essay, the joy of postcards, and then afterwards. And you click around and spend some time on this site, and you can see all kinds of afterwards, people writing after their experience with the fest, which I like to do every year if I can on September 1st. It's done. The ritual is, here's what I did during the fest, and here's what themes came up, and that kind of thing. And it's fun to look at and to have that as a ritual. So popo.cards, you want to bookmark that. In fact, I can bookmark it and get it ready and put it in the chat so that you have that there. Boom. Oh, send it to CJ. She already knows where the thing is. Send to everyone. Okay. All right, what's next on my agenda? It is methods. That brings me to Ellsworth Kelly. I'm going to share screen again and bring that up. That Sally Hedges Blanquez sent me this. Share screen. Go to the browser, but then pull up the Ellsworth Kelly. Dig this. This is an exhibit of the collage postcards that Ellsworth Kelly did. Very important American painter. In fact, if you see here, one of the most important artists of the 20th century. His abstract paintings, sculptures, and prints are masterworks in the exploration of line, form, and color. And had stamps honoring him a few years ago. Does anyone still have some of those Ellsworth Kelly stamps? I can go into my stash here and find them. Anyway, there are several of his collage postcards, which are going to be exhibited there in upstate New York. Where is it? At Saratoga Springs, New York, at the gallery at Skidmore College, starting July 10th. And here's the first one called Giant Artichoke. I think Bhakti would love to see that. And then let's see if they let me get to the next one here. I've got to push you people up there on the side. Here we go. Here's the arrow. Okay. So here's Columbus Circle, right? And so imposing a giant crescent moon there on what looks like New York City. It's called Nose/Sailboat. Yeah, gotta watch. You might need a splash guard for that. Here's Amsterdam, 1979. So he did a lot of, of course, when you go travel, especially back in the 60s and 70s, what'd you do? You buy postcards and you write something like, "The weather is here, I wish you were beautiful." The Young Spartans, 1984. Statue of Liberty, 1957. So he was doing this kind of stuff in the 50s. And, it might be a fun form to play around with. You see the different ones. And Horizontal Nude or St. Martin Landscape, 1974. Do a little exploration there. Study for Dark Gray and White Rectangle, 1977. And Cincinnati Riverfront Stadium, 1980. I think that's AstroTurf there. Anyway, that's just one way to do the fest. Going to antique stores for postcards, creating collages of those, or adjusting those, or painting on them, or gluing things onto them. That's one way. One of the things that has been popular in the last few years is people making their own cards. And I think it's inspired me to make my own cards, even though, when you first start out at something, it's like, oh my God, this is awful. This looks like a 7th grader doing it. It's like, who cares? One person's getting it. Any conscious person says, Well, at least this is better than getting a Costco supplement, right? Getting an original postcard. But sometimes you get some really beautiful things, and who knows when you're going to get a card from someone like Diane DePrimo or someone, maybe they become famous afterwards, and you have a piece of original art that someone took the time to make. And so creating one's own cards, you can buy blanks, you can have blanks made. Don't go for the glossy; they're hard to write on, I've learned. Um, and eventually, and of course, I scanned them and transcribed them as well, so I could read them later because my handwriting's kind of crappy. And I've got a database or an archive of about 1,000 of my postcard poems because I've been doing it every year for 15 years. So it's a beautiful thing to have, and I really love that. And just getting this art in the mail is a beautiful thing in the summertime. It makes the summer, it makes going to the mailbox a lot more fun because you're not just getting the crap and the bills, but you're getting original art. And I love to tell the story. Someone described it of the mailman coming with a postcard and giving it to someone and saying, "Hey, this one's pretty good." I love that story. By the way, I found the Ellsworth Kelly stamps. I still have 4 of those left. So, I wish I would have bought 5 pages of these stamps. I Googled Ellsworth Kelly stamps, and someone's got them on Etsy or eBay or something like that, and they want $25 for a sheet. It probably cost them $7 or something like that. So I'm not a stamp collector, but in a sense I am. I've got all kinds of stamps, and I like to buy 2 or 3 sheets, and who knows what's going to happen with the Bugs Bunny stamps in a few years, but I just love having those. I know I pay extra to put a letter stamp on a postcard, but I'm a fan of the USPS, and I want to support them. So let me just go to the next thing on my agenda here. I showed you the Ellsworth Kelly. And then the last thing I sort of began to allude to, the fest's ongoing depth. You start out with, oh my God, can I even do this fest writing spontaneously? No, I'm going to put them in my journal and then write a good version of that. And maybe it takes you a year or 2 to realize, what the hell, I'll give it a try. Like David Sherwin, about how the Postcard Fest, how sending postcards to strangers made me a better designer. Looking for that essay, which is on the Popo site, linked from the Popo site, is fantastic because once you realize, look, this is not about creating 31 genius poems. It's about practice. So once you get that and the spontaneity starts to come easier to you, then the next step is creating a beautiful card and doing your own cards. And of course, the more you do anything, the better you get at it. And once you start creating your own cards, then it's like, oh, what kind of stamp do I put on this? Can I collect stamps and put on some kind of stamp that has some, some connection to the content? Maybe you do that. I haven't done any Bugs Bunny postcards, but if I do, I'm ready because I got the Bugs Bunny stamps. And then one of the final frontiers for me is the actual handwriting of it, because my handwriting's not great. So here's an example. Here's an opportunity to practice in a kind of calligraphy kind of sense. So that's something that I'm going to be working on this year and in future years. So the fest, the more you do it, the more of the opportunities to practice emerge. And been doing it for 15 years. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful community that has come from it. And so I'm going to post my whole agenda in the chat room. I'm going to look at the chat because there's a bunch of new questions, and I'm going to open it up to questions. So let me just take the ones. Here we go. Lawrence says, how has the sign up gone for 2021? How many lists will you have? There are, I think at last count, about 290 or so people this year, down from 544 last year, but there's a lot of latecomers who say, I'm not sure, I don't know how it's going to be. I don't know if I'm going to want to be inside when all this COVID stuff goes away, so I don't want to join this year, or any number of things. But divide, I guess, about 300 by 32 and you have your answer. Will I become, this is also Lawrence, will I become a famous artist like EK if I do the fest? Lawrence, to me, You are already a famous artist, and people should know that you want to get on his list if you can, although you don't really have any choice about that. But maybe you want to just hound him or stalk him. I would recommend stalking. I mean, cyber stalk, not don't go to Colorado.
But
Um,
not for the poetry.
oh, stop! Just cut it out. Stamps are an important part of my postcard practice too. Would you like to elaborate on the stamp aspect of that, Lawrence Pevick? By the way, Lawrence, what town? You're in Boulder, Colorado?
Boulder.
Yeah. All right.
The stamps. I'm going to print up my own stamps this year. I bought some. Stamp blanks, sheet blanks, and I'm going to do a. I'm going to do a limited edition Lawrence Pevick stamp sheet.
And
Or
those are legal stamps.
no, actually, they're not legal. They're auxiliary stamps.
I see. So you're
It's
going to have
Lawrence. They're Lawrence Pevick forever.
there is stamps.com where you can take an image
Yeah,
and make
yeah.
a stamp out of it. And I did an homage to my friend Sandra Fleming and made stamps out of her painting, which probably scared a few people. I don't know. But I sent her a card with her own stamp on it. I think she nearly crapped her pants. That was, and of course, to have a friend do that is a beautiful thing. Um, Lawrence Pevick forever. You should probably get that URL before somebody here snaps it up, knowing that you're a famous artist. Perriman says to everyone, I don't remember if I signed up for this year. What if I sign up a second time? That's a good question. You'll have to send 64 cards, or no, 62. You'll have to send 62 cards. Actually, some people do sign up more than once, even if in a shortened fest, and they just go hog wild. Tim Mateer is just insane when it comes to the amount of postcard poems that he sends out. He's already signed up twice. I signed up 3 times last year, and so I did send about 100 postcards last year. But again, last year was a COVID year, and we started early in March 19th, so that gave us more time. If you don't want to be on there twice and had signed up twice, then I will gladly offer to keep the extra money as a contribution to SPLAB, or in the worst case scenario, give you a refund for that. So that would be the answer to that, Perriman. Did I answer your question good enough? Is that good? Oh, the first question was, I don't remember if I signed up, and I can deal with that after. I'll do the administrative stuff after. And if you'd like to hang out after the presentation here, I'll be happy to do a control F on the current list and see what's happening. What else? So Shauna Swatek to everyone. So looking forward to the fest. My first time a poetry postcard virgin. Fantastic. Do hit me up if you have any questions. Although between Monday and Saturday of next week, I will be in Olympic National Park and very happily away from email and cell phone contact. Who else do we have here? Then there's my agenda. Ellen, to everyone, postcard power. Yes, I'm with you on that, Ellen. And more so than that, it's postcards and poetry in general as an act of ahimsa, my Soto Zen priest friend says. When you are engaged in a creative act and sharing this with a stranger in many cases, you are doing a very basic Buddhist tenet. First, do no harm. And there's a peace poetry postcard fest that happens in February, run out of Bellingham, Carla Schaefer. And that is also something that I think is a beautiful part of this festival. We're engaging in a creative act. It's an international creative act. It's done in a good spirit, although we had one guy from Wyoming last year who sent a card responding to someone's politics. So it was hate mail. Why would you want to do that? You don't like somebody's politics? Deal with it, but we're at a time in the history of the United States where it's as polarized, if not more so, than the Civil War, and we're a lot more armed now, so the potential for danger is much greater. Next question. Skylar puts the link to how sending postcards to stranger made me a better designer. That's in the chat. Highly recommended. David Sherwin nailed it. He really gives you a glimpse into his own process. And furthermore, when you begin to trust that process, it's an intuition building, it's a guidance building. You can begin to see how it has benefits for other aspects of your life. In the case of David Sherwin, it was an opportunity to be a better designer. But I think when you tap into that source greater than yourself, you can find that you can tap into this guidance as long as you can separate it from irrational fear. Not fear itself, because sometimes fears are there to teach you something. Like, get out of the street, a car is about to come by 50 miles an hour. That's good fear, and responding to that's important. But separating intuition from irrational fear, I think doing the fest helps. So thank you, Skylar, for that. Ren said, should be able to go into the submittal account to see if there was a payment. Yes, there you have it. The registrar this year is Submittable, and popo.submittable.com is where you join the fest this year. And so I will put that link. Will that be a hypertext link? Probably not, since I didn't put www on it, but I'll do that. So there we go. I don't know if that's going to go through, but thank you for that that note. Yes, you can get on Submittable. We're looking for alternatives to Submittable because they no longer send their newsletter Submishmash, and we want help in promoting this fest, and they offered it and then changed their terms halfway into our tenure there, so we're disappointed. Is there an end date? Regina says, when is the festival over? For some people, never. They keep sending cards throughout the year. They've got their addresses and they're dangerous. It's like December. I thought this was the summer Poetry Postcard Fest. But we say on our list of how to do it, which is at popo.cards, how it works. August 31st. Send your last cards out. Put them in the mailbox by August 31st. Write your afterword on September 1st. Get the few stragglers that come in. My cat died. I wasn't able to get out my last 7 cards, but I promise I will. If you join, send 31 cards. I mean, it's a matter of it's a matter of the honor system. There's no Popo police. Popo's police anyway, so that would be redundant. But yes, the fest technically, the way we envision it, it ends on August 31st. But some people are stragglers, and it takes them longer. Lorraine says, if you create a custom stamp on stamps.com, is it a real stamp you can use to send a postcard or letter? Yes, it is. It's a real stamp. Couple of things. Number one, it's more expensive. You pay a little bit for that service. Number two, when you sign up at stamps.com, they pull the Donald Trump on you. It's like all of a sudden you're paying every month. It's like, wait a minute, I remember checking that. So it's kind of a scam. When I saw that show up in my checking, transactions, I said, "Hey, wait a second, I didn't do that." And they're like, "Oh, no problem. We'll just take that off." So beware, stamps.com. At least when I joined, they will do that to you. Start an account, and you probably don't want to do that. CJ Prince, Peace Poetry Postcard. That's right. Lawrence Pevick says, "Practice being vulnerable." Well, just being alive in this time, you have to be vulnerable because, we're still dealing with a pandemic. We're still dealing with people who don't want a vaccine, don't want to wear masks, and think that that's a hard thing to do, to wear a mask so you don't get people sick. To me, that's crazy. Oh, I sent Regina 2 private messages for the sign up. So I didn't mean that, Regina. You probably know that by now, but I'm going to send it to everyone in the meeting. And there you go. What other questions? Does someone have the link for withinstamps.com for making the custom stamp? I will put our cutter and pasters on that task. Ren says, will the video be available with chat log? I know the video will be available because I'll put a nice little intro and outro on it, and I'll make a post on popo.cards, and those who missed it can see. If you haven't subscribed to popo.cards, you could do that, and you'll get a weekly email, and you'll learn about what the latest is. Beware of stamps.com. I was hit with monthly fees, even though I never used the service, Lawrence said. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Thanks, that works. We have to go, says Susan on her iPhone. So those are the questions that I've had so far. If anyone wants to unmute and chime in or um, ask another question or anything like that, now's your chance. CJ, I see you raising a finger. Is that chime right in? Two fingers. Peace. You have to unmute though. And while you're unmuting, CJ, since we can't hear you, I'm going to read what Karen says. I found that Avery.com has a good program for making postcards. I use photos and a few photo collages, but you can do your own art and transfer it easily. And then Canvas Champ, by the way, I got to show you this. Pull out the phone here, but I wonder if you could see this. I used Canvas Champ to create some of these here. These are some of my postcard poems. Whoa! Hello, I'm okay. Here's some more that I did last year. And Canvas Champ seems to be the cheapest service to use for that. And then I found out that they're based in India. And, you know, as a person who is somewhat concerned about their carbon footprint, to get canvases from India, but it was a beautiful thing. They did a beautiful job and it was pretty cheap. And I love having that. I've submitted some of these postcard replications, these prints, to at least one gallery. So my career as a famous artist is just beginning. All right, CJ, your question.
Well, I wanted to make a comment about how much I appreciate Popo. I've been in a slump for 6 weeks of not being able to be creative. So I got all excited that you were doing this morning, and I made 2 postcards last night.
There you go. Sometimes it just takes a little push.
Yes, and this one, well, it's hard for me to there. So somebody will be getting those, and I just started last year doing the art and the writing. Before it was like, oh no, I can't do both. That's too much. But every year since 2013, there's always been some kind of drama in my life that is relieved by Paul, St. Paul. He is setting this up has been very helpful for me to have a focus in August, which is maybe my worst month. So thanks, Paul.
You don't like summertime. That's right. Mamma mia. CJ, you're very kind. When you said I alleviated your drama, I'm like, I've got to do that for 543 more people. Holy shit. I can't even do that in my own life. But I appreciate your comments, and I'm getting better at taking compliments, CJ, and I'm grateful that you're part of this community. Thanks for attending, and thanks for your kind words. I do get juiced by the Postcard Fest. I have a question, and I'm going to bring in Margaret Lee to talk about the essay. That was a good, so I got your message. So Lawrence says, are there many young people, high school or middle school, signed up? I'd love to have my grandchildren participate. 2 things. Number one, no, there are not a lot of young people signed up, and I would love it if they did, but I was told that they should probably have a parental unit sign them up, someone over 18 to sign up, and we'll probably have that as a disclaimer next year, because as my sister said last year, what kid wants to be getting postcards about your prostate cancer treatment? and she's absolutely right. It was what was happening in my life. I was getting cyberknife radiation treatment for prostate cancer, which I've survived, and my PSA score is down within the healthy limit. So thank you for all the good juju that was sent my way. But children should have a parent. People under 18 should have a parent sign them up and understand that there may be some adult content that comes into their house. So it's like me reading Diane de Prima's Loba to my 9-year-old daughter and coming to a 4-letter word that begins with C, and I'm like, oh boy, we're having that conversation today, and her mom's not going to be happy. And we had the talk, and hopefully Ella understands the gravity of what we were dealing with. With that said, I would like to invite Margaret Lee to unmute herself and talk about the essay that we collaborated on that ran in the Journal of Black Mountain College Studies, Poetry Postcards, Black Mountain Style. Margaret, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, this is a great idea. Yeah, I just thought, I know the link is on the website, but I thought it might be good to draw people's attention. Um, it was a fun project to do that with you, Paul. And so what we're talking about, everybody, is an essay in the Black Mountain College Journal about the Postcard Fest. And Paul did all the heavy lifting because he was the one that made the connection between the fest and the Black Mountain Poets sort of school, and how those things work together from the standpoint of poetics and composition. And all of that was very fascinating to me, and I learned a great deal from it. And my little part to pitch in was had to do with the fact that in my one experience with the fest last year, my sense was that there was something about the media, the medium of a postcard and handwriting and spontaneous composition, that for me put me in a different frame of mind, and made it possible to create those spontaneous compositions. I mean, you can talk about spontaneous composition in the abstract, but having the opportunity to actually do it, for me, this was a genius idea because the fest entails an addressee, an audience, and somehow the manual work of writing the card and composing spontaneously brings with it a kind of immediacy. And the postcard size means that the poem is short. That makes it more manageable. So together, and I in this article just reflected a little bit about the ways in which the fest created that kind of possibility. So great fun. And I was so pleased that the Black Mountain College Journal supported the idea and included the essay in their last issue. So yeah.
Well, if you talk about the size of the postcard, how about the size like this?
Wow.
These were like practice postcards, and I'm probably not going to send them out, or maybe not send them out to. Those are some of my first collage postcards, and you get better as you do it. But Margaret, I think that the collaboration with you was fantastic. I don't know if you got my package of Sam Hamill books.
It hasn't come, Paul, and I know it's been a while, so I've been meaning to let you know that. So just FYI, it hasn't yet arrived.
That's a pisser. Well, look out for that, and
Will do.
I'll have to remember. I didn't, I saved the receipts, but I don't remember when I mailed to Sam. Just the notion of the Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message, adding that to the postcard. See, this is another example of how the depth continues to be unveiled, because I knew there was something beautiful about postcards, but in this age of everything becoming digital, what's the latest with non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and all the energy that they have to generate to hide the code and give someone that, and the original code for the World Wide Web is now being auctioned off, and how about something you can hold in your hand that goes in the mail? Another postcarder, Carmen Kennedy, told me about this mail art fest in Turkey, out of a college in Turkey, and when you agree to send them stuff, you agree that your artwork has zero value, and you don't expect to get it back. And so I created something for them, and they put it on Instagram. They're going to have it in their collection. I'm going to be represented, and it's a postcard that I was really happy with. So the fact that it's a tangible thing that you write on, that you create, is so 180 degrees from you tap it into a computer, you hit send, it's gone, and you forget about it. So I'm really grateful that you came up with helping me understand that angle. And quite frankly, Margaret, I think that angle is something that could be developed. Maybe others here, there are other scholars who can follow that and follow the leads of Marshall McLuhan on that. So thank you for that. And if you don't get the books in another week or two, I'm just going to send you another package, and we'll just go from there.
Well, I'll let you know. Yeah, because it seems like it should have arrived by now. Yeah.
Yeah. Marshall McLuhan, famous Canadian. Another famous Canadian, Linda Crossfield, says, I have a box with literally hundreds of cards in it, and now I'm doing my own, but I realized just today I can collage postcards using images from other postcards. Should I need more postcards? What do you mean, should I need more postcards? Because you've already created yours for this year. Can you, Linda? Linda, I think, might be the only person on the call here who has done the fest every year. So yes, unmute yourself and show us, and do that thing again, Linda, if you could do that. There we go.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm a long hauler. Yeah, I did all these things this year. I'm no artist. Normally I have trouble drawing stick people, but I just ended up doing this. Somebody local had an initiative in May from one of the local art places to do a drawing a day. So I thought, I'll do it on a postcard. And then I've got postcards. So yeah, getting original art this year, people on my list.
And 15 years of the Postcard Fest.
Yeah. And the first 3 years, I think I cheated. I wrote things out in a book first and then put it on the card. And I have learned a lot about spontaneous composition doing this. And it's a good thing. You get out of your own way.
It's liberating, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
There it is. Perriman says, my grandchild goes volcanic over excessive energy used by NFT. Yeah, Perriman, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, come on. I mean, the things that are going on in the world right now, and we're gonna use this kind of energy to generate these things. Something is out of whack, and I think postcards is a little way to put our world back into whack, and we're all for that. So, any other questions? If anyone wants to unmute and hop in and ask, or put in the chat, and I'll respond that way. Otherwise, I'm going to stop the tape, and we can hang out. And I've already had coffee, so I'm not going to do that. But call it a show.